What's up, everybody? Big Hurt 916, muscle up. You know how we do it over here. Nothing but cars. This is my car channel, and this thing is blowing up. And I got my friend Debo. He's back, and we about to chop it up because you guys have some good feedback last time, and I know we talked about like mechanic horror stories. So we're going to get into some more of that, and then we're going to also talk about the lowrider community and how that car culture is, because a lot of people are familiar with like the JDM or the supercars, but the lowrider community is a totally different culture. So Debo, getting back to some of the crazy mechanic horror stories, man. I mean, I've dealt with some mechanics, bro. These guys are despicable, bro. I mean, some of them, and it starts off good, and then it just goes south, and I don't know what it is, especially not when you're doing oil changes and tune-ups and shit, but when you're doing builds, when you're doing like, motor stuff, and you're doing, performance parts or whatever the case may be. What are some of the things, I know you talked a little bit about it before, but some of the things you've ran into and you've seen that just as like, it's like, dude, how do these guys stay in business?
Man, I would say, as far as, my personal horror story where I felt like I paid for a service and I really wasn't satisfied with the outcome, it was just a very impartial outcome. I would say, like, on the mechanical side, I had a couple of experiences that I wasn't really too happy with the outcome. One, I would say, was this is my second phase of my lowrider career, where here it is, I took my car off the streets and I'm rebuilding my car. I had the original motor, which was a 307, which I would recommend to anyone. Never ever use that motor. Get you a Chevy motor or get a LS motor. Something that is going to be reliable once you hit the road. But I paid this guy who was over in DeLand. I paid him a couple $1,000 just to go through the motor because I had already had a guy who had came in. We took the motor apart. He resealed the motor. All the new hardware that I had purchased, from the intake manifold. I had a Harley carburetor. Just new spark plugs. Just, all the functional components just to keep the motor running at a moderate pace and reliable at the same time. Took the motor to him. He was supposed to go through the motor. And then I think what he did, too, was he changed the water pump on the motor. Paid him to do all this stuff. And, once we put the motor back in, I just remember putting the key in the ignition, going to turn, and it was just fluid just coming out of it. And I just said, man, all this money I put into this motor for nothing. And I just felt like with this guy being a seasonal mechanic and someone that was recommended to me, he just was there for the money grab. He didn't have my best interest. He didn't look at me, okay, like, all right, this isn't just a customer, but this might be something that can turn into something greater than just this, $2,500 investment, and I think that's the culture here too in Florida, where people are so eager to take money, but they're not really looking to create communities, because the community will keep you around. The hustle will take you down. And that was one of the horror stories, I would say, where on the mechanical side, I spent money and I didn't get what I paid for.
Now, on the flip side, have you really had any like great mechanics where you've seen them do the work and it's exceptional and you're like, damn, this guy right here, he's the shit? Or you ran across somebody who recommended somebody and you're like, you know what, when I get my paper right, I'm gonna take my car to these guys because everything coming out of their shop is like top notch. I mean, have you ran across any mechanics out there like at that caliber out there where you're at?
Well, I'll say this: the two mechanics that I had phenomenal experiences with were prior to moving to Florida, and they both were in Brooklyn. It was my
Mm,
man Geese over in Brownsville, and then I had another guy. He was a Puerto Rican guy. He was from the Brownsville, East New York section of Brooklyn as well. And these two guys, they were monsters. And um, those are people who I wish were around for this phase because they were part of the automotive community, and it was never really about money. They just wanted to see me on the streets, and they wanted to see the customers on the streets. They were really passionate about their work. It's hard to find that kind of element these days, and Florida is challenging, man. You have some very talented people, but it's just a different culture. It's a different culture of professionalism, and just that higher elevation of etiquette is very hard to, come by. I will say this: there was a guy, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, because I have another car too. I have a Cadillac, and this guy, he had a shop here in Orlando. It was over on Forsyth is like industrial area, and you have a lot of independent mechanics and body guys and paint guys. They'll go and rent out little storage units, and then they'll go. That's what they do. They do their work. This guy, he and his dad had an actual shop on Forsyth, but they later relocated to a neighboring uh, town, which is called Longwood. That guy was a good mechanic. A little bit pricey, but he was good. And that was someone that was recommended to me through a guy who was in the Cadillac community. Now, a lot of these nightmares that I experienced here while living here in Orlando, these were guys from my car club, you know,
mm,
which was heartbreaking because it's like, wow, man, I feel like I'm being set up for failure purposely. But outside of that, that guy, he was, man, phenomenal. I can't even think of his. I think his name was Steve. And then when I went to go look for him, while I, when I this story I just explained to you about with the motor leaking, he and his dad, when I went to go look for him, they were gone.
mm.
So this is, it's hard. Like when you're, you have budgets, and most of us guys in the lowrider space, when we build these cars, if you're working, a 9 to 5 dude like me, there's not much room for error. And if
Yeah.
you do encounter that, now here it is, it might set you back 6 months, a year, 2 years, because you have to go rehustle all that money up again. And to find those people who have those credentials is very hard. So that was one of maybe, I would say, two mechanics that I met. I had a hard time really meeting like real high skilled, reliable mechanics here in Central Florida. Now, if I were in Miami, it would have been different. But
Uh,
yeah, here in Orlando, it was just very hard to find, good mechanics.
Now, do you go to a lot of car events out there, like Cars and Coffee or meetups and network out there like that to try to find other people in the car community who have done builds to maybe get references or something like that?
Yeah, anyone in the lowrider space, they know me. I'm a popular guy. Many of those resources, those guys, those guys who are talented on that level, it's very hard to actually get them uh, because everyone is going to them. Unless you just come in and you're like, hey, listen here, man, I got $20,000. Because money talks too.
Yeah, yeah,
Money
true.
talks. So in order really to secure the attention of these people, you just got to come with a bag. And I knew, like, for me moving forward, that's just my plan. Like, just make sure the bag is in place to get the proper the proper people. And then, I mean, there was some like, there's a guy I want to introduce you to, from Miami. He's relocated to Orlando. Exceptional master builder. But he's another guy, you have to get him on the spot, or else you're going to have to wait 2-3 cars later. So car shows are good networking grounds. As I mentioned in the last episode, there's only so many people who actually offer exceptional services. So it may be 3 at most who are reliable, responsible, and accountable.
Yeah,
to pick up a limited edition GTA poster signed by me for $10, or with your purchase of a Wig Splitter Porsche t-shirt, I'll throw in a free poster signed.
Yeah, I've kind of come to that same realization. I know, there's some shops I've ran across even out here, and the guy like, oh, this guy, he's got a great shop, and some of these dudes charge like crazy bread, but even then, like, I went to a shop I thought was like decent, found it on Yelp, read some of the reviews. They said they work on cars from Barrett Jackson, getting them, after they've been bought, they clean them up. And they messed my car up, man. They cost me I probably spent like $6,000-7,000 there, and they cost me another $1,500 to fix what they messed up. So I spent around $8,000 there and didn't get shit. You know what I mean? So it was like $8,000 just up in flames. So yeah, even these shops that claim that they can do this and that. I mean, I went to this guy initially to have my tranny done, and he quoted me like something crazy. And then I ended up finding a guy who would do the tranny and just had it taken out myself. But yeah, a lot of these guys, they talk the game, and it's almost like, and if you don't know maybe a customer or multiple customers that's been to this shop, it's hard to say what the quality of their work is. Like the shop I just left right now before I got on the stream, 2 guys, they take their time, but dude, they're thorough. Like, they didn't even charge me to go through my car today to let me know all the little stuff. And they're like, when you come back, we'll put your car in and get everything done. But they explain everything, and a lot of times people tell you something, but they don't really show you what it is the problem is, and so you don't really know. And then you come to find out, rather than replacing a whole part, it just might be a gasket. You might just need a little silicone. And like today, he's like, the guy showed me something on another car I had. He's like, yeah, we're just gonna seal this back up, clean it up, do a smoke test, and booyah, it should be good, because all they're gonna, you said replacing this whole part is like a couple grand, and you can't even get it. So really, it's just a matter of rebuilding. It's a seal. So the other guy told me, oh man, your intake is cracked. You got to replace the whole intake. And the guy's like, ain't nothing cracked on it. It's just a seal. So a lot of these guys, man, I'm just like, dude, you think you have a great relationship, or somebody's like on the up and up, man? But the car game is just dirty, and that's at every level. I don't care. That was a Benz I was talking about, but like, I don't care if it's a Benz. I don't care if it's, like you said, a Cadillac, a hot rod, muscle car. I've seen guys who are building Porsches, and they take their cars to these shops, and them dudes, $200 something an hour, and dude, they're not doing nothing different than the next guy, but charging you up the ass. So you got to really have a relationship, and if you can get somebody who really knows what they're doing, stick with those people, and build a rapport, because even the shops with the big names, unless you get to know somebody there, you're just another number
And another victim, because like I said, it's a money grab. Going to shows, you network with people, but my experience just being a long-standing member of this lowrider community, I've been around this thing since I was 7, so 41. And just a lot of shady characters. So you see the same people every season, and these guys get older, and they just never ever graduate to, business acumen that voids violating proper etiquette.
And I think with the lowrider community, because it's more street, it's a different game. It's like a different game, huh?
Yeah, and this is what I touched on last time. And this is, in no way, I'm not trying to indict the culture and put it down. I just feel like it's 2024. We got to keep it real, because I'm from the generation of that G-Funk era. I was the generation where we watched Ice Cube and Boys in the Hood, and we saw Eazy-E and NWA when Eazy-E, back in the late 80s, he was on that Blue 6-4. Like, we were curious. We were like, man, what is that? Because we're all the way here on the East Coast. So I'm from that generation. But what I would say is what was adopted from California was that shadiness. That shadiness, yeah. The shadiness, it's like a cancer. And here it is. Like I said, there's people who come in and they want to build a lowrider. And some people, they're able to successfully complete the task without having experienced the trauma. Some people never complete the task, and all they have in their data, in their stored data, is trauma. I got screwed every step of the way. Every person I encountered was shady. They were impartial. I paid a lot of money. I got nothing. Another thing I want to touch on, you talk about some of these shops. Sometimes it's best to not take your car to a shop that is within that same community. Because let's say I take my car to a lowrider shop, who's to say if I have some nice stuff in there, that stuff might not be stolen.
Oh, wow.
Or it might be, stuff like Versace gears and stuff like, ADEX dumps, this stuff people want. These are high dollar items. Yeah, and it'll get stolen. It gets stolen. And a dude to have a narrative like, hey, yo, somebody came in the shop, they stole it, but don't worry about it. I'm going to take care of you. Because that's what happened to me. That was my introduction. I gave the dude, he was in my club too. He was an older guy who I knew prior to joining, the car club that I was affiliated with. He said, yo, I'm a Showtime distributor. I could get you a 3-pump setup, all chrome, everything polished, $2,500 out the door. I said, really? He said, yeah, man. I gave this dude cash, $2,500. Was waiting months for this setup. By the time I get the setup, my car is in New Jersey at my boy Bill's shop, which was in Freehold. Was called Chevy's and Lax. And I'm at Bill's shop. He said, hey, bring your setup. I bring the setup. He said, yo, something don't look right. And this is my first time building a lowrider. He said, where's all the fittings? The fittings were missing. It looked like the tanks were switched out. I was missing my pressure blocks. The main block he took was from the main pump. This is the half inch block, and those are the most expensive ones that you get. Then one of the 3/4 inch blocks they were missing. Like just everything. It was basically like I gave this man $2,500 for free. So when I'm on the phone, he kind of just tries to fast talk me. He said, hey man, I'm kind of busy right now. Let me get back to you later on. So I hit him. I said, well, hey man, I'm coming out there to Queens. Where you at? I want to, you know what I mean? We need to assess this situation and take care of what needs to be taken care of. So I immediately went to go see him. Dude gave me this whole it was a scripted lie. Oh man, somebody came in my shop. You know what I mean? They took some of the stuff, but don't worry about it. We're going to come back harder. And his shop was someone's garage that he was renting, because this is what people up north do. They rent garage spaces out of people's backyards. So Dude is trying to convince me that someone came into a gated house, which is secured. They got video cameras and came in and they stole my setup, which in New York, low riding it's an underground thing. And at that time, it wasn't many people doing it the way that we had planned to do it, because we were building traditional lowriders. New York City traditionally is Euro. It's not traditional. It's not no Cadillacs, no Chevy, none of that. It's Toyota, Hondas, Acuras. That's New York style of, like, that's its interpretation of lowrider. So yeah, Gabe's got $2,500, did the deal, and then even the car that I bought from him, which I have now, paid $1,800 for that car, and the car had it was just rust everywhere. So people don't really understand what I went through to build the car in New York City, which is already challenging because we don't have the resources. But then I'm dealing with someone who is a sociopath who feels their only way to actually win and achieve their goals is to lie, cheat, and steal. So that's how I came in the game, building a car. And I definitely have trust issues. And I'll tell anyone who's watching this, if you're building a car, just like when you go and get a corporate job, they want to know what your credit score is. They want to know where'd you work, your last 5 jobs, your previous 5 jobs. Do some background, research on some of these people that you're going to give your hard-earned money to, especially in this economy, which isn't all that great, because you got a lot of crooks out here and they will rob you without a gun.
Yeah, especially like the car culture. It's a lot of passion, and so you're invested in something that's it's a mode of transportation, but you're putting the money into it because it's a passion, and that passion is why you trick something out or make it so unique, or put 20,000-30,000 into a paint job, or do what you do. And at the end of the day, that's like your vice, that's your high. So for me, my cars have been high, but man, it's taken me on some roller coaster emotions, because I've spent so much money, but it's like having a house and you can't live in it. You know what I mean? You just keep looking at it. You go by, you walk through it, and it's but it's uninhabitable. You know what I mean? So it's like, until you can stay in that house and get the feeling like, wow, this is mine, I can live here and enjoy it. It's the same thing with the car, your car that you're building. It's a certain connection. And then when you're building a car, it's different than buying something done. I've been to a lot of auctions, and I don't know if I'm going to do that next, is, buy something done. Because, you're building a car. I mean, the 3 cars I'm working on, I've had them all for like 10 years. And I'm just now getting one of them back. So people think it's overnight, and they're like, oh man, you got this car. And it's like, dude, I've had this for years. And it might have been in this shop for 2 years, this shop for 3 years, on the street for, 6 months, back in the shop. So, even, and I'm telling people this because even high-end builds, like, you're not going to get I don't care if you got I'm balling, I'm going to spend $500,000. Bro, your car is going to be, if a $500,000 car, even $1 million, like auto rammer car or like a Riddler car, you're talking 3-5 years. Some guys 8 years, 9 years for some of them cars that are like artwork, on a level of like a crazy lowrider. But that's it's not overnight. And even a regular build, if you want something clean, about 18 months, minimum 18 months. If you got bread, if you come with 6 figures, and I've seen guys even come with 6 figures and get screwed. So like you said, do your homework, talk to prior customers, what's their feedback, what is the shop relationship. I preferably like dealing with guys who kind of work from home, because I can go to their house. The shop I was at, they got the shop on on the property. So there's no bullshit. These guys aren't going to burn anybody that's coming to their house. It's kind of like, hey man, it's cool, drop it by after dinner. Those are the type of people I've always won with. When I started going to big shops, when you're like, that's when I started getting beat up, you know? So it's like definitely something to think about, like the shop owner, the reputation. Are these guys really car guys? Like if you got a shop too where they have people come in and they just log a bunch of hours, those shops most likely are going to bill the shit out of you. And the owner is all about just making money. He's probably not even a car guy, but he knows how to manage a shop. And so he'll have an independent engine guy, independent wiring guy, an independent fabrication guy, an independent stereo guy, an independent interior guy. I remember a dude told me, I asked him, I said, man, how much was this interior? It was in a truck, right? He said 20 grand. I said, what are you talking about? 20 grand for 2 seats and a headliner and a dash and some carpet? That's a truck. Oh yeah, man. So I'm like, how much did he charge you to wire the car up? Oh, that was like 20 something. I'm like, oh bro, they robbed you 20 something thousand to wire it. And it's like, dude, he didn't have like no crazy beat. He didn't have like a goddamn 5G tower in this car and nothing like that. I mean, you know, it was pretty standard. And you know, overall, this guy, he had a budget on a 73 C10 of 160,000, right? And he came with the motor and the transmission crate from Summit. They didn't even swap his tranny out. So he had a stock tranny. I don't even know if they boxed the tranny, because he said the tranny, I mean, I'm sorry, not the tranny, the frame. I don't think they boxed the frame, because the frame, he said, when the guy checked it, it still had leaves and shit in it. But the frame had leaves in it. The tranny and the engine he got, which was like an LS6 or something crate motor, they couldn't get the goddamn the shifting down right on it, and the cruise control to work. And then on top of it, it wasn't supercharged, it wasn't turboed. But his budget, he said, from 160, he said he got a bill of 210,000, and his car still didn't run right, his truck still didn't run right, and he took it to another shop. So that's even with big money. And he came with like, this dude had bread, so he dumped like 100 racks, and then he dumped like another 60,000, and then they came with that bill. And bro, yeah, I don't even know if it's driving now.
Oh, listen, that's a common theme in the lowrider space. I mean, a guy who I used to be real close friends with, he was from my car club. He sent his car out to Mississippi for a full resto. It was a box Chevy. Wound up spending almost 200,000, and come to find out, they didn't even paint the car. Well, they painted the car, but they didn't take it down to bare metal. But he was charged for all of this metal work and body work. When he went to go have some paint correction work done, the guy who wound up painting the car, doing the paint correction work, he was like, hey, your jams are blue. And he said, yeah, they just painted over this. He said they never, this car wasn't taken down to bare metal. And he was just like, wow, man. He's like, I paid all this money for this stuff. And there was a lot of other stuff that had occurred with the bill that just produced a lot of question marks regarding the integrity of the transactions and the work that derived from the transaction. But yeah, this guy got robbed, man. He got robbed without a gun. And you know, the guy who ran the shop, he's somebody he's well known, but he's well known in the lowrider community for his work, and he does good work. But then also he has a reputation for being shady. And I don't know. I ask myself, like, why? You know, are these guys shady who own these big shops because there's more of a priority to pay the rent? So they're going to just take the money from the customers and then try to figure out later on, okay, well, how can I appease the request of the customer, but also keep the lights at the shop on? I don't know. You know, there's just a lot of crooked business maneuverings, and definitely moving forward, I think as a culture, we just need to do better, because the way I look at with low riding and the guys who low ride, you should be able to low ride and actually make a living off of it. Like in the corporate space, I feel like corporate America is always looking for ways to maximize their brands. You can use these guys for brand enhancement, but because most of the guys that do come from the lowrider space, they don't really apply a scholastic element to the way they do business. They miss out on these opportunities because they don't see the big picture.
Well, see, that's where having, like you said, a cross cultural perspective of what that means. Having like a perspective of what your car's worth, and you know what really did that. If you go back, and I'll take you back. Dukes of Hazzard, not Knight Rider, the Kit car, okay. And then I'll take you to Gone in 60 Seconds.
Oh yeah,
You know that Eleanor Mustang, the lady who owned that trademark was killing him. You know, she just now kind of lost the last thing, so now people can use Eleanor the name, but she had a lock on that name, and you would get a cease and desist. But literally, stop it. Literally, the name Eleanor on your Mustang would mean another $100,000 at auction. So you can literally say Eleanor Mustang with the license on it, and your car was worth more money at the auction. Fast and Furious. Look what that did to the JDM community. The Honda, you know, the Integra. I mean, Integra was just like whatever. Back, remember, people had them, beat them up, but then that movie came, and for aftermarket, like the aftermarket industry blew up. Greedy, Bilstein, all the turbo, all that stuff blew up, man, and created a whole nother genre. So with the, you know, Honda Civic, the Accord, all those cars, you know, with the lowering, with the performance parts, all that stuff, and then those cars, you know, cars became personality. So, you know, like you're right with the lowrider thing, and even with the muscle cars, you know, if you know how to brand it right, and you know, can get your car in one of these movies or featured in a music video, Fast and Furious or something like that, your car becomes an actual character, and it can make you money. I've had cars like my Chevelle. I rented it out in the movie. It was making a couple $100 a day, just letting me move the car from point A to point B and have the actors get in and out the car. But stuff like that is opportunistic all the way around the board. So if your car is just sitting somewhere and you're not trying to utilize your car, and you ain't got to let nobody like go tear it up, but it's a prop. And the Peterson they got low. I don't know if you're familiar, but the Peterson Museum in Los Angeles right now, they actually have a lowrider exhibit.
oh
So
yes.
they're doing a whole, I don't know how many months, but they're running a lowrider exhibit after Peterson right now. So lowriders are in the process. If they're at the Peterson, it's a crossover thing happening right now. So if you got a sick lowrider, if I was somebody who had one, I would be reaching out to brands and be like, you know, and it's just all about putting your stuff out there on Instagram and stuff. But yeah, man, I'm about to do the same and just brand the shit out of it. And your car, whatever you put into it, you should be able to make it out of it.
I agree.
You know, so a lot of opportunity there. And, you know, for guys, I don't know why, you know, I don't know how these guys stay in business, but why a person would do one person, you know, a good one and build their car right. And then, like you said, you come to them and then they start doing some shady shit. And then, you know, these guys have to show their face. I don't know why a person would do that. I would never treat a person like that, knowing that I'm not going anywhere on social media. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. You know, we're in a new era, so we're not really in the gangster era anymore. I think we're in the gangster imitator era. So people talk like gangsters, they dress like gangsters, but back in the day, you would hear real horror stories regarding a lot of these shops that did fraudulent, work. Like I told you, when I was in Compton, I met this guy. He fresh home from a 30-year prison sentence, and I asked him. I said, what happened? What transpired for you to have to go to prison that long? He said, well, I killed one of my car club members. I said, really? He said, yeah, man. He said he stole some stuff out of my car. I had it at his shop, and he said I shot him in his head. And he was like, yeah, man, I was in Pelican Bay. I was in Folsom, San Quentin. He was telling me, he went on the whole California prison tour. He said, I held it down. OG Crip dude from Compton. And, that was his mindset. But this is a street guy who, outside of, gang banging, that was his fun time. And, somebody took that away. So he was like, you know what? No, I'm not going to allow you the opportunity to take my money that I, had to go out here and get my hands dirty. No, I'm taking you out of here. And I think if people were more aware of those type of people, there would be a different maneuvering. And I think just a more genuine approach to doing business. But a lot of these businesses, they're just open because of the opportunity to have a business and have access to capital. But, as I mentioned in the previous, the previous interview, from my experience, what I see here at a lot of shops in Florida, cars will go to a shop, but the work isn't built in-house. A lot of the work is sent off to other shops. And sometimes, as I mentioned, a motor might go to this shop, and then by the time it goes back to the shop that it came from, stuff is missing. And the customer's like, well, where's my stuff at? You paid to be robbed. You basically paid to be robbed without a gun. And the person that you paid isn't a builder. They don't even have certifications to be a mechanic. They just have the gift of gab. You got to watch out for those people. I call them parrots.
But now those people, like, you haven't been referred to them through your shop. I mean, not your shop, your club. Isn't that like supposed to lend some type of credibility to their work?
You would think so, but you don't really know how people do business until you become a customer. And most of the people who do recommend the services of these guys from these shops, especially these big baller shops, they're just doing that because, how can I say this without it sounding vulgar? They just riding the diving board. They're just riding the surfboard, man. So they're going to say, oh, yeah, man, that's my homie, da-da-da. Yeah, that's your homie, but he's shady. Yeah, that's your homie, but you never took your car there because you can't afford it. And then once you do attract the person who can afford it and they got the bag, they're not getting it what they're paying for. They're just paying they're just paying to be associated with your brand and your name. And social media has taken us away from the hard work that's associated with professionalism. You don't have no professionalism. These people have no real credentials. They don't have no real skill. They just have a name. And that's how you get caught up in the matrix.
Now, you're down in Orlando.
Yes.
And you were saying, like, if you were in Miami, it would be a little bit different. Is that because the culture over there is more active, and people aren't really playing those kind of games in the car community because of because of the reputations, or is that because of just there being just a different demographic of more quality shops?
Well, here in Orlando is the hospitality capital. So you have Disney World, Sea World, Universal, Red Lobster headquarters is here. So this is where people come for a commercialized dining experience, vacations of that nature. South Florida, West Palm Beach, Broward County, Dade County, they have more of a automotive economy where it's not just a culture. This is a way of life. This is how people actually eat. So every county you go to, you have shops. You have a shop everywhere. You have mechanics everywhere. You have people. Even when I was down, I was staying in Pompano last year for a brief period. There was a Puerto Rican guy who lived right up the street from my grandmother. This guy was doing motor jobs in his front yard. He had a little he had like a little tent. I'm watching this dude. He had the TIG welder. He was welding aluminum, and I said, "Wow, this dude can weld aluminum." And he did a motor job literally in one night. It was raining too, and I just remember seeing the girl. She driving the car, and I said, "Wow, that's South Florida. You see more of that down there than here. Here it's not really It's not a lot of big shops. There was one shop down over on Colonial, off of Colonial and OBT for some time, and they kind of like they dealt with like luxury cars, and then also the dumps, which are very prevalent here, but they wound up shutting down. So the shops, there's no shops in town that actually work on classic cars of caliber. Most of the shops, like good shops, you go to Tampa, you got Tampa Customs, but outside of that, you got to go to South Florida if you want to make a statement, and that's in any realm, hot rod and low riding, you import, even with the motorcycles. South Florida, they just to me the best mechanics, the best painters, the best body guys. They're there, and then you got to take into consideration too. Miami per se, it's a lot of Cubans. So we seen what communism did in Cuba. All those old cars in the 50s, they still run today, and
that's crazy.
You look immaculate. So those people from Cuba, that's the skill level that's there. It's in Miami. Those old Cuban guys that were working on those cars for all those years, they come to Miami, man. It's nothing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because Cuba. Those classics are all rolling. They still, they ain't got nothing new over here, so they pushing old schools for real. And I know, like, even when I go on social media and I look in like the videos and like in Florida in particular, it's Miami. The JDM scene out there, they got some cats. The one cat, like Puerto Rican and stuff, he's building some sick ass like what is called those R32s and R34s, and you got guys out there who specialize in those, and you got the guys who are doing like the Benzes, the AMGs, and then you got the guys who are doing the high end dunks, dunks that are like 300,000, 400,000, 500,000. So when I think Florida and the car game, I do have a tendency to think Miami because it seems like they're really on it tough. And then, a lot of the guys from it seems like Miami are really competing hard in that dunk game against the guys from North Carolina, Atlanta, Mississippi. It's like that game right there. I see those guys, they're on a whole nother level.
Yeah, the dunk game is different. It's starting at six figures.
Yeah.
You're going to spend minimum 100,000 to build that, build the dunk. And all those shops that build those cars, those were guys that were low riding in the 90s. People like Kenny from I-95 Customs. He was one of the guys when I was a kid coming up in the streets. Who else? My man
I
57
seen that
Freddie.
I-95. He does some big stuff.
Man, he's evolved over the years. You know, this is a guy, like I said, he went from lowriders to man, he had a shop. I can't even think of it. What cat I used to go to elementary school with, work with him. A cat named Puerto Rican kid from Queens. His name was Lou. He worked with him, and I can't even. I think it was DNC Customs, if I'm not mistaken. But I just watch where he came from to where he's at, and he created a brand. But he also is where he's at because, like I said, doing business the right way. And not treating your customer like an opportunity, but treating your customer like a real investment. I'm investing in you like you're investing in me. And let's turn this thing into something. Like you seen those 2 cars he built at his shop. They sold for almost $500,000. That's 2 cars.
Damn.
So him and his customer, they're eating real good. And that's how a shop should conduct business to create those type of outcomes. So everybody's eating.
What is the average price you think to build a quality lowrider? Let's say, I mean, you know, a lot of people 6'4", 6'3", 6'2". Those are like, you know, just getting those cars without being them cut is expensive. But like, let's say entry level. Let's say say you came in with an 80, let's say an 83 Cutlass or an 80, let's say a 78 Cuddy or something like that. I mean, or 84 Monte Carlo. What would that cost to have it done to where to where you pull up and you can kind of like go poo poo on a couple people? How much money you gonna put into that thing?
And you know, Cutlass, you know, it's a 40-year-old car at this point. You know, when you say 83, 84, and that's actually what I have. I have an 84 Cutlass. When I first built my Cutlass, I spent about $15,000. And I was back in 2000. I bought the car when I was 21. Started working on the car, started building the car when I was about 22, 23. And I bought the car out, I'm going to say 2007. Yeah, 2007. Bust the car out, $15,000 in. Now, the second time around, when I took the car off the frame, I went and had a frame built, Pitbull Hydraulics in Louisville, Kentucky, by my brother Brent, you know, legend. I spent on that frame $5,500 to get that frame built. My car never came out, and I spent about $30,000 with my car not coming out. So to answer your question right now, to build, just say a G body, or even, you know, a mid 70s Monte Carlo or Cutlass, now because we're so far removed from the starting dates of these cars, they're not cars that are highly accessible. So when you can't just go to a junkyard and find these cars, you know. And if you build the car, you want to go and buy another donor car. The donor car is going to be $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. You know, that's on the low end. To build these cars, you're going to spend, I'd say right now, to $30,000. 30, I think 30. Anywhere between just having a reliable mechanic, a reliable body guy, a reliable painter who's not going to go upside your head on labor. You can, I say, probably about 30 bands. That's hydraulics, that's motor, interior, paint, body work. And then let's say, you know, you're going to want to have to get a, you know, all Euro, everything. So, I mean, digital. So you want to get a digital dash, you know, you'll probably spend about $1,000 for a digital. I'm not exactly sure how much a digital dash is now. When I bought mine, it was like $7,000.
1,400, 1,500. I just looked at one.
Wow, you see? Okay, so when I bought mine back in 2008, 2009, I paid $700 for my digital dash.
No,
so
I mean,
now,
Yeah, the
So
prices jumped like Dakota Autometer.
that's
I mean,
Dakota.
Dakota. Okay, so Dakota, if you're getting the gauges with the dash together, you're gonna spend about I just seen them because I was looking for one for my Cougar, and it's anywhere from like 1,200 to 1,400.
Woo! Yeah, man. I said, yeah, 30,000, man. 30,000
Now,
minimum.
like, what do you think paint's gonna cost? Because I'm gonna tell you, paint prices jumped up too.
All right, so it depends. Now, if you go in clear coat, base coat, man, 10,000.
Yeah, 10,000. That's what I
10,000.
just
Now,
made.
if you want to get
Yeah,
exotic and start incorporating candies and pearls, add on another 10,000. We had
yeah,
20,000.
yeah, yeah,
Because depending on who it is that you're looking to paint your car, now you got to pay them for their skill level. Now, when they're
yeah,
doing all the graphics and taping, you got to pay for the materials. The materials aren't cheap. You know, um, one of the most expensive things that you're gonna pay for when painting a car is that clear, because you don't want no
that's right.
cheap clear, especially if you live in, you know, um, I would say like one seasonal climate areas like California, Florida. Texas is kind of like iffy, but even Texas, the Southwest area, the Arizonas, New Mexico's, you want to have the best clear.
Yeah, yeah,
No, so yeah, you're gonna be 20 bands in minimum, and I say this is my minimal number. It can increase up to 40, 50, and
what,
these are
how much?
cars. I would say
How much you think for interior?
interior starting. I say starting is like 2,500, and that's on the low end, and that's just doing stock. Now, if you want to get into doing a high custom, more like a Euro look, because that's what I see a lot of guys doing, like with the old schools, even in the muscle car community. They want their interiors to look more like a luxury type of style from, let's say, a Mercedes or like a Ferrari, Lamborghini. They want that stitch pattern. You got to pay. So some of these guys who do upholstery, they like, now you got to give me 5,000, you got to give me 6,000. Because once I cut
Yeah,
this material off, I don't know what's under here. I might have to rebuild this seat. So I might have to put new foam on there.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
might have to put new wiring in. So it's so expensive now. I think a lot of that too is just like with the whole, that import tax. You know, because a lot of stuff isn't made here in America. A lot of these materials that we utilize, they come from overseas. You're paying for that. So every step of this process, you're going to be taxed.
Well, actually, depending on what you're using, like just for the motor, I know, like I was looking at, like say, um, AR, AR fittings, like the fittings in the car. If you use the fittings, like with the U joints and stuff that are metal, you're talking like, depending on how many fittings you have, that could be a couple $100 compared to like having some bullshit copper fittings or whatever, stainless steel, which is like $50, $80. So as you look at like in the hosing, if you got braided hoses, or welded like radiator, like connectors, a radiator pipe rather than a hose, and if you're running, just depending on like what type of like serpentine belt, all that stuff. Like I could look at a person's motor and be like, oh yeah, he spent some bread. That's like 20,000 in the motor. But if some dudes pull up and they're like, he's got a bunch of they got the plastic covering on there, kind of trying to make it dress up kit. Pep Boys dress up kit, or they got like regular goddamn metal screws in their firewall. I mean, you can tell like where this guy, he's proud of his car, but he did it on a whatever budget. And then this guy who went through and everything's like all these bolts are like matching ARP. It's like that's a whole nother level, just on the bolts. So yeah, the game, man, it's crazy, man. And I tell guys, uh, that, you know, if you want a cheap hobby, you might want to find something else, because cars, man, that shit add up. You know what I mean?
Cars, it costs. And you see a lot of dudes, especially in the lowrider community, I see a lot of older guys, and they're on Instagram. These guys are in their 60s now, and they're low riding broke. And it's embarrassing because these, a low rider is very high maintenance. So when you see these guys that are going across country and taking these trips and their car is breaking down, that's just an indicator that your money's funny. Especially when you start having like mechanical issues, like you're talking about with the motor. That's the last thing I see a lot of people build is the motor. You know, yeah, they'll have these extravagant paint jobs, and that's why you tend to see a lot of dudes keep the hood closed, because they open that hood, they're not talking about nothing. And that's why I respect the dunk dudes, because a lot of the dunk guys, they spend money on the motors. They make sure, because the dunk coach is all about cruising. Low riding is not necessarily about cruising, at least not on the East Coast. It's a seasonal thing. It's really a show thing. You'll see these guys, they'll come out to the shows. They may go to a couple of picnics or hangouts here and there, but they're not outside every week. You'll see them maybe once, twice a year, because these guys don't have the money for the upkeep. And, you want to get into, a car hobby, you got to have your money right. And I've had people in close quarters try to hate on me. Oh, man, Debo, this, that. Listen, I always made sure I hustled for what I wanted. And this is why we're having this discussion about shops and entities who rob customers without a gun. You steal that person's opportunity to go out and have a good time. And you steal the opportunity for that person to be in a safe space economically. They have to figure out ways to reinvent the wheel in order to create that money momentum. And I just say that to say this: there's a lot of people who can't afford to do it, so they steal the opportunity from others. So anyone who's watching this, make sure you don't allow someone to come in and steal your opportunity to go out there and do this, because you can afford to do this. Because a lot of dudes, they can't afford to do it, especially when you start to see older guys, who haven't really reinvented themselves and reinvented their paper chase. So stay away from the guys who say this is a hobby they love, but they ain't got no money. Because 9 times out of 10, they're going to be figuring out a way to rob you without a gun.
Yeah. And they probably lean on their reputation in order to kind of get you to get you in. Mm-hmm. And that's the catch.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because it's one thing that, like you say, these guys' reputation. These guys, you see them, and some of them are revered as OGs. But I ask anyone, what kind of OG do you want to be? You want to be a broke OG? Because that's not an OG to me. OG, yeah. You want to, the guys I respect were those guys that were pulling up, they were balling. People like Del Dog, I encountered when I first came to LA over 20 years ago. We dudes putting out stacks of money. Hey, man, what I'll go build some right now. I'll come out tomorrow. Shout out to my OG Charles Clayton. In his time, he was balling. And he made a way for other people. He had several proteges. So these are just, pay attention. We don't want to be superficial and, money centered, but pay attention to the money trail, because it's a lot of dudes that are perpetrating. They don't have the money. They have a name and they're just familiar. And because they've had a long-standing existence, you get comfortable with them terming themselves as OGs. But like I say, never want to associate yourself with a broke OG. That's how I got caught up with the story I told you with the hydraulic scenario. That dude was a broke OG when I met him, and he's still a broke OG now.
Wow.
So yeah.
Yeah, you gotta watch for the broke OGs, man, because they constantly getting young.
Are you tired of smelling funky? Have you lost your ass? Go to BigHurtNello6.com and get to Nutsack Run.